Welcome. I'm Michael Bickert. Thanks for joining me today as we explore concepts with the objective of improving your management skills and growing your business. At the beginning of every video, I remind you, pause the video right now so that you can grab a notepad and a pen, because I want you to make a commitment to yourself that you will jot down something actionable, some kind of action item that you can implement in your business today. That's what it's all about, implementation and driving your business forward. Today, I want to talk to you about the impact of stress on the effectiveness of management and your decision-making ability as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as a manager. Recently, I had a conversation with somebody who reached out to me and wanted a little bit of advice based on a situation he was in. And I can't get into too many of the details about that for confidentiality reasons, but suffice it to say, he was experiencing a lot of stress, and the interactions he was having with other managers, he was a manager in an organization, and other managers within the organization seemed to be treating him unfairly. And as he was describing the circumstance to me, I was asking lots of questions, trying to wrap my head around the situation. And it just wasn't adding up. It seemed strange to me why things were unfolding as he was describing. And I said to him, I have to take what you're telling me at face value. And I would also say that, this individual was under stress. It can be very difficult to do a self-evaluation and to be self-critical. So he may have been leaving out some details, not necessarily intentionally, but that would have shed some light on things that maybe showed where he was not performing at his peak, or he was making some poor decisions and behaving in a way that wasn't ideal for the business, and that was impacting what was happening around him. But that wasn't part of what was being shared with me. It's just conjecture on my part. And so I continued to listen and asked a lot of questions, and I made a conclusion based on what he was sharing with me and the information I had. I don't have the opportunity in this instance to speak to the other stakeholders, but it was just poor management that was being described. The decision-making process was going to, very predictably, in my experience, end up leading to some adverse reactions within the business. And I concluded and stated that, in fairness to these other people who were making poor decisions and acting perhaps rashly, unjustly, and certainly in a way that I thought, as I say, predictably would result in bad results for their business. In fairness to them, I said, I think I understand what's going on here. I would imagine that results lately have been lackluster and that you've been performing lower as a company than would be expected. And what happens, and what I have observed, is that when that is the case, there's undue stress or an inordinate amount of stress on the decision makers, on management, on the owners of the business. And that's where these symptoms start to manifest, where you see people acting rashly, maybe unpredictably, unfairly, making harsh decisions that come across to other stakeholders as unfair. And what's ironic is that during the stressful times, during the times where business is struggling, and that's not always the reason for stress. Of course, some businesses are very successful and management is undergoing a lot of stress due to the conditions that led to the success and trying to uphold that success. But in this instance, and in many that I have observed, that it may be the market, it could be some things outside of the control. That's very frustrating and very stressful for people to be enduring things regarding the success of their business that's outside of their control. And that tends to cause a lot of stress. And as I was saying, ironically, this is when the business needs you most. It needs you to make your best decisions. And there's a great opportunity during these times of stress to outperform the competition and to grow your business like never before, and to make improvements that during otherwise either booming times or where things seem to be going relatively painlessly and fairly well, you may be unmotivated, unprompted to actually make changes and to drive your business forward and make improvements that you otherwise may do in the case where you're very stressed about the way things are going. So, I would advise you to look at your own business and your own management style and ask yourself, in trying times, in times of undue stress, are you as good? Are you as effective as a manager as you are during good times? And I've experienced this time and again with various people that while things are going good, they're fair, they're reasonable, communications are flowing really well, and we're collaborating, we're putting our heads together, ideas are abundant, and yet when things go poorly, all of a sudden people get their dander up, everybody's defensive, and there's finger pointing going on and everything. Ask yourself if you've ever noticed this phenomenon happening within your business. And are you involved? Are you contributing? Are you trying to help that situation, or are you making it worse? And you have to be honest with yourself. As I mentioned in this example that I gave earlier, the person relaying the story to me, the one that reached out to me for advice, he may have been not really fairly looking inwardly at himself and determining what role he played in that and how he could affect positive change in the management of the situation and the business and get positive results. And that's what it's all about. Remember, you can only focus, or you should only focus on those things within that fall within your circle of influence, those things over which you have some control. And don't fret too much about things outside of your control. With this individual, I said to him, I think things are going to be much better than you realize. Cooler heads will prevail, and people are generally reasonable when communication prevails. And so again, when you think about these times in your business where stress is playing a major role, you have to try to behave a lot more with a stoic nature and not so much with a knee-jerk reactive nature. You want to stay the course. Remind yourself, step back and breathe. Give yourself some time. We've done a video regarding how to make good decisions. And one of those things in that video, you should watch that video if you haven't seen it. But one of those things is taking the time so that you can gather intelligence and information that'll help you to make a good decision. There can be kind of a downward spiral that happens, and this vicious cycle where each time the stress affects you and you make a poor decision or you snap at somebody or whatever, then that just begets more stress, and it starts like ripples in a pond start to spread out, and that increases the stress level. And all of a sudden everybody, it's like, knocking over the first domino. I don't know, choose your metaphor. You light the fuse and now it just spreads like a wildfire. I'm mixing my metaphors here, but you get the idea, is that it can start with you. And as a leader, that's one of the things you need to consider in your attempts to be more effective, is what example are you showing? Your people are looking to you at all times, and the other stakeholders can find comfort in seeing that you're stoic and that you are reserved and that you are calm and you're making good judgments still in the face of adversity. So consider, what things can you do? How can you turn this into an opportunity? And we've done another video on that as well, is finding opportunity with adversity, looking at challenges and those things that are causing you stress and framing them in a different light so that you see them as opportunities. And ask yourself once again, how can you use this stress to motivate you to improve your business? Look at those things and ascertain, get together with your team, get feedback, create mechanisms through which your team can give you constructive criticism, or the business constructive criticism, and can suggest things that would improve. It may be that you are trying to lower expenses, or it may be that you are going to innovate in a new way. You're going to drive value for your customers in a way that you've never done before because you didn't have the motivation. Maybe you didn't have the time. Maybe it is because your business is right now experiencing a lull in customers and demand. Therefore, you have more time on your hands. And what are you doing with that time? Are you strategizing? Are you planning more and meeting with your team and getting feedback from them of what could we do to drive success? Remember, you just have to be better than the competition. You can't be perfect. You're always trying to look to go from your current state to your desired state. And your desired state is always an improvement over where you are now. You're perpetually refining. And so just look at what are you doing now? How can you improve? And if you're doing this and your competition isn't, you're going to beat your competition. You're going to win market share. You're going to win customers away from them. And when things improve again, when the stress maybe calms down, then once again, you have a team that has confidence in its leadership because you didn't sort of show any cracks under the pressure. And now all these new improvements that you've made, this innovation, this greater value, these things can survive and actually thrive in an environment where things are going much better and the stress level has improved or decreased. So in summary, what I'm saying is tumultuous times will arise and they will persist. And sometimes you will have a number of things beyond your control that are causing you undue stress. And when that stress is present, you have to be strong. You have to find a way. You have to be honest with yourself and evaluate, do a self-analysis, some introspection. Ask yourself, am I being effective as a leader? And then look at things through the lens of opportunity as opposed to stress. As soon as you recognize the symptom of extra stress, it can be things like maybe you're not sleeping as well at night, you're eating poorly or not at all. Any number of things can occur to sort of trigger you, to alert you that you are experiencing an inordinate amount of stress. And when you notice that, I want you to say, okay, now what can I do to use this as an opportunity? And be honest with yourself and don't think that you're all alone. Talk to your other stakeholders. Reach out to a company like ours if you really are struggling with trying to solve a particular problem. We can help you with that. Sometimes you need an outsider to look at things from outside the box, so to speak, and propose solutions. That's what I was talking about earlier when I said that it's not always easy to do that introspection and shine the light inside on yourself and inspect yourself and ask yourself whether or not you are being effective, whether your stress is, whether you're being honest with yourself about how high your stress level is, and is it affecting your effectiveness? And if it is, then you need to react to that. And it's not always easy to identify that. Sometimes an outsider, someone who has less skin in the game and less at stake if they were to provide you with some candid observations, is what you most need. But whatever you do to try to turn things around, look at it through the lens of opportunity and remind yourself you need to do this, otherwise your competition does. It's just going to be, this vicious cycle where you end up getting more and more stressed out, and that doesn't help anybody. So that's where I think we're going to leave it today. I would like to hear from you in the comments. Leave something in there. What do you do in times of stress? Are you a great manager when you're stressed, or do you shine under pressure? Some people really do. And if you're honest with yourself, maybe share with the community in a comment about what things you've noticed that have really affected. Maybe it's your HR or it's your expense control. I'm not sure. Leave a comment. We need to learn from one another. Perpetual refinement.